I think this is, getting to be the end of this long, lingering drama, this big open question of how is this effective ban on this app going to play out. This looks like a resolution that should keep TikTok continuing to operate in the United States and under a new structure that is majority owned in the U.S. itself. I think there are real questions about whether this really adheres to all the limits in the law that Congress adopted. But at the same time, I'm not sure there's going to be much will to push back on that at this point. It's looking like this might be the end of this saga, and it might let TikTok continue under this new structure.
So one of the concerns I think a lot of folks kind of carried was didn't want the Chinese government to have access to U.S. Residents' data, their personal information. Do we have safeguards up for that now? Does this deal assure that?
Well, so, at the time that this all played out in the courts, TikTok was pushing for an arrangement called Project Texas, which had Oracle overseeing a lot of this data and protecting it from going, in theory, back to China where it would be at risk. What we see here is sort of a similar arrangement that they ultimately settled on, where Oracle and other U.S. investors run this new entity, and that new entity would be in charge of overseeing U.S. data under Oracle's leadership. So it's a very similar arrangement in that sense. The thing that's sort of not clear here, though, is that the law also says there can't be any sort of operational relationship between the U.S. entity and ByteDance. And when you read through the materials, we don't have the actual contracts here, but when you read through the press release, it doesn't say much at all about limiting any sort of operational relationship between the U.S. entity and ByteDance. That was really an animating concern. So I'm not sure that they've checked all the boxes in that sense, but there are protections here. This is a U.S. entity under Oracle's leadership checking on this data.
Does this arrangement have any precedent for some of the other Chinese companies that operate in the U.S.? I'm thinking like an Alibaba or a Tencent or Baidu. Does that have any application?
It's really difficult to say that this is anything more than a one-off. The TikTok situation sort of drove a unique pushback. It was a strange situation where Congress was aligned on this. And we had Democrats and Republicans joining together saying, absolutely, we need to ban this app unless we fix this. And you haven't really seen anything like that for other apps come together. And especially with President Trump pushing back on this, that really discouraged lawmakers from stepping up on this issue. So I don't really see a lot of read-through to other companies right away.
So this new entity, it's got some private, I guess, equity, American investors, private equity investors. Where does the value accrue here? How does that work? Is there going to be an IPO of this U.S. business at some point, or will it just stay privately held, do you think?
It's really tough to say. We've had some reporting that suggests there's a revenue share arrangement that goes for all of the TikTok data going forward. But it really unclear, we don't have the terms of this arrangement and how it plays out going forward. So a lot of missing details on questions like that, and we're kind of reading between the lines on the press releases. What we know here is this follows the law in the sense that ByteDance ownership falls below 20%, as that was a key term in the law. It's not clear that it goes beyond that. Obviously ByteDance would still own the algorithm here, which was a big driver, and so this new entity doesn't own the most valuable piece of this business. So that definitely limits future returns for this new entity.